Hi, good morning. Good morning from Kingston, Jamaica. I know it's not morning time in Kassel, Germany. This is presentation in league with Alice Yard's participation in Documenta 15 in Kassel, Germany. And I'm doing this workshop to accompany the work that I have on display in Documenta, which we'll go into a little bit more what that is about. All right, so welcome to the personal storytelling workshop. I am Oneika Russell, a visual artist based in Kingston, Jamaica. In this workshop, I use the personal storytelling tool, a card deck to create opportunities for social engagement and self-inquiry in my art practice. The tool is a card deck inspired by the artwork of Luigi Savon, Philip Thomas, Mafalda Mondestein, and my own work. So today we're going to read. This week we've been focusing on poetry, but unlike the first week, we're not doing Caribbean poetry. We're doing poetry from the West that has a relationship to what we're doing or our lives in the Caribbean. So the story is from another perspective, right? So today we're going to be focusing on a particular poem that I've selected from my little anthology of poems that I've been using, and we're going to read a passage from it. Actually, we're going to read the whole poem, and then we're going to use the cards to reflect on the story and come up with alternatives, comments, and conclusions, etc. And then after that, we will open to the public if anyone is here. If no one is here, then that is also fine, and we will continue into a more general open storytelling session. And then the session will come to a close. So there we go. All right. So what have I selected for us today? I'm gonna just log into my Zoom, add our second camera. Okay, so here we have our Miles Kelly anthology, and we're gonna do a little passage from it. All right. So the poem selected today is The Slave's Lament by Robert Burns. And here's a little bit of context from the publication. Slaves were transported to the USA to work in the developing cotton, sugarcane, and tobacco industries. Burns evokes a sense of longing for home in this poem and the Senegalese slaves' new life in the tobacco-rich plantations of Virginia. It was not until 1865 that Congress ratified the 13th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, abolishing slavery nearly 70 years after Burns died. Okay, so another thing to add is that they weren't actually just in Virginia. We actually have a lot as well to consider in the Caribbean. Let me just make sure okay, there we go. So the Caribbean was partially populated and peopled by slavery, and the fact that I am here in the Caribbean, of the ethnicity and ancestry that I have, is because of the slave trade. And I do think that Robert Burns also spent some time in the Caribbean as well. Okay, so That's let's get going with the slave's lament. It was in sweet Senegal that my foes did me enthrall. For the lands of Virginia, oh, torn from that lovely shore, and must never see it more. And alas, I am weary, oh, all on that charming coast is no bitter snow and frost, like the lands of Virginia, oh. Their streams forever flow, and the flowers forever blow. And alas, I am weary, oh. The burden I must bear, while the cruel scourge I fear, in the lands of Virginia, oh. And I think on friends most dear, with a bitter, bitter tear, and alas, I am weary, oh. I'm sure that my O is nothing near the type of wail that should be let out for this poem, but yeah, I take a more reflective view on that. Yeah, so this story is telling me of a slave, an enslaved person who longs for home, longs for a place that was more familiar and just more pleasant for them, and the tiredness, the mournfulness, the grief, the loss, the pain as well, to know that you cannot have it anymore. And there's a line that says that my foes did me enthrall. Okay, so that has a little bit to do with the history of the slave trade, I think. How did slaves get to, how were they enslaved? You know, there's always a bitter debate. Were they enslaved by their own peoples, or were they enslaved directly by the Europeans? And I guess there is research to know that they were enslaved by other peoples in Africa, because a kind of a slave trade did exist before, and it just kind of bloomed. It kind of flourished with the European demand for slave labor, and it expanded in that way. So that makes me, that line about torn from that lovely shore, it makes me think about also Jamaica, the Caribbean. Many of us live on islands that have a coastline. A beach is a big feature of living in the Caribbean. And then this enslaved person is longing for a charming coast as opposed to bitter snow and frost. And I think up to today, I think West Virginia is known for I guess the issues to do with race struggles, class struggles, and however, the thing I want to point out here is this is by Robert Burns. So this poem is, in one sense, an act of empathy by a Scottish poet, but in one sense as well, if we think about it in a more contemporary context, Robert Burns also participated in the slave trade. He worked for a while in I Caribbean in plantations, and it was a way to earn a living at that time as a person who did not come from the wealth, the established wealth and the established class system. You could kind of set up a place. Many an artist did participate. Many a writer, many a person who was from the West, the European heritage and society, but also needed a way to support the output. And so we do think about some of the output that we have as masterpieces back then. Even now today, we do think about how this participation in not just a slave trade, but a colonization process did enable that that production of the art. And so it's just something I think about, especially as an artist from this side of the region. So we're gonna get into the cards. Okay, so my usual struggle to get into the box. Okay, and so this is the guidebook. Sometimes I use it, sometimes I don't. Let's see. I don't know, should I use it today? I'm feeling like the little pamphlet has like I wrote 3 exercises that you can use to work with this this deck. So let's see what we have today. Let me just, building a bridge is one exercise that I designed. Give yourself 1 minute to think of the first person that comes to mind with whom you have conflict or tensions. That's something. I think that would be really interesting to get into the mind of the enslaved person here. Finishing the story. Okay, choose 2 image cards to create a story that you think tells the beginning and middle of a situation. Oh, there's so many good ones. Okay, do a Google search. Oh, we lost it. Do a Google search about a difficult, interesting, or important history. Oh my gosh, they're all so good. You know what? I may continue this. I may do this exercise next week as well. I mean, there's so much to explore here, and I think that this card deck is particularly well suited to describe the experience of the Afro diasporic person. All right, so I'm gonna get my cards then. I'm separating the text cards from the image cards as I usually do. Let me prop my keyboard up so we don't have that in frame. All right. So the one that stood out for me was building a bridge. That was the first one. So we have give yourself 1 minute and think of the first person that comes to your mind with who you have a conflict or tensions. And I'm going to put myself in the shoes of the enslaved person. Choose an image card which represents how you feel and place it on the left side of your table. All right, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to just think about the how that person would feel or was feeling. Okay, I'm not gonna lie. I do have difficulty accessing that feeling. Um, maybe, maybe because I am so far removed. You know, I live in the place where this this person would have longed for. Um, I live on like the island where there's a coast and there's beauty. Um, and I guess living in this present day, there's so much that we have done to overcome some of those restrictions, and we're working daily. I mean, the fact that I get to be an artist uh, today and I get to talk about this freely on Zoom, and that I am showing work and documenta does show how far we've come, but also to remember that some of those reasons that we are in Documenta is because of the attempt to include the global south. And so it's still not erased. So let me try to think about how this, maybe while I'm looking through, I can have more success. Okay, there's definitely something here in this one. I'm gonna pull that one aside. Okay. I feel like seeing how appropriate these cards are for this poem, it does seem like I had definitely this idea in my head. And also not just me, right? Because it's drawn from Luigi Savan, Mafalda Mondesine, and Philip Thomas's work as well. I like this one as well. All right, so the first three of the first four are appropriate. All right. So I think we have here someone that feels maybe mired. Is that the word I would say? I skipped the writing today because I want to go directly to maybe just free association with the cards. Okay. Also, this is someone who this person feels helpless. This person might just have given up completely. This person is like, I'm just gonna go along with it. I'm just tired. I have no more give. I have nothing else left to give. And then this person is now feeling a sense of I want to say that the sense of inner power or fire is what I want to say. A sense of inner turmoil, which produces a kind of, turmoil does produce a sense of being alive, because you know that you are reacting against something, and you know that you want to leave, you want to go away from something. It makes you feel, it's not a pleasant feeling, but it does make you feel that resistance, that oppression does make you feel a sense of fight for life, which is a kind of basic instinct. It's a survival instinct. Although the other thing is that keeps you in survival mode as well. Okay, so how do I arrange this? I'm gonna say, let me enlarge the screen so that we have more to see. No, you're supposed to remove. Okay. So I'm just at my desk. You can see my keyboard. So here, I think there's a thought that's going through this person. This person thinks a lot about how they came to Virginia, this little place called Virginia, and I think that's all. It's all consuming. It's an all-consuming thought. And then I guess I would put yeah, I like this order. There's a sense of I'm so tired. The exhaustion is there. I feel watched. Maybe I'm being watched by almost like my former self is seeing what I have become. And so, because we do see in that poem or hear a kind of reflection on their state now. So there's a consciousness there. They're knowing that what I've become now is not what I used to be and not where I intend to be, but I don't have the agency to change that because I was brought here and I don't have that type of sensibility, not sensibility, but I just don't have those that capacity even within mentally, but they're so physically drained and exhausted, beaten down, worn down, that there's just almost like a giving in, a surrender to what has happened. But then through the poem, we do see that this person hasn't given up. They're aware of their state, but there is a definite sense of being enslaved. There's a definite sense of being held, being mired down, but yeah, it's difficult. It is difficult. Where do they go from here? I like to think, where do you go from here? Let's look at our exercise and see what else is left. You know, the thing is, I think through doing this exercise, I am feeling more exhausted. I'm feeling more of what is described. All right, so it says, choose an image card which represents how you think the other person feels and place it on the right side of your table, leaving a space between two cards. Okay, so I'm gonna now choose the feelings of the enslaver. We now know what the enslaved person felt. So let's the enslaver. What would the enslaver have felt? It's interesting. I like this one. I'm gonna put that there. I am a strong I'm a strong believer that the enslaver could not have felt zero. In the same way that if you go to war, if you're in the army and you go to war in a country, that even if you're a superpower, let's say you're the US and you go to Afghanistan, we now have many reports that say that even though there is a belief that you have to go for a certain reason, people are fully committed to going to fighting for their country. They believe in that. They buy into that and support their country in this way. So it's a strong sense of identity that happens, but we do know that you don't go to, let's say, Afghanistan and fight for a year, few years, 3 years, and nothing happens to you. You're doing your job, but the human is not built that way. The human is built to absorb and see and empathize. And even if you are convinced that in a war zone these people are lesser than you, because tragedies do happen, gross uses of power or abuses of power, which should say, happen, we do know that something does happen to the individual, the post-traumatic stress disorder. And that's interesting to think about, right? Because we never really talk about the post-traumatic stress disorder that the enslaver could have gone through. And perhaps, we all talk about the PTSD that the enslaved still deal with. That's pretty obvious when you talk about mental health and kind of scope of life, how perception of life and perception of what's possible, self-esteem, self-worth, we do see that. But I wonder, how did it affect the enslaver? So let's look at that today. So I wouldn't choose this card because there's nothing here, but also maybe it's very fuzzy, maybe it's gray, I don't know how to, maybe numbing, I don't know how to feel. Okay, let's put that one. That one seems to produce a lot of thought in me. My hand that I've been holding my phone with is a little bit numb. Okay, so all right, here's three cards, and let's look at that. Okay, so I do believe that the enslaver would have felt so right under this one we have a very similar type of image. It's actually a close-up of this. So almost like the enslaved person has this weight on their head, but the enslaver is almost focusing solely on this. The possibilities, the industry, the trade, the difficulty of going through this passage. And maybe there are a lot of emotions, the difficulties for themselves. There's not that other element, which is the fact that this thing is built on producing this psyche for another set of people. Almost a kind of avoidance and ignoring of that, because this whole part is cut off. The fact that this ship or section of a ship is on the head, it's not here. So I think these two are experiencing the same set of events, but there is definitely perspective shift. Even some of the things that they're seeing is in common, because we do have this ship being much more foregrounded in this one, or what I'm going to call a ship. It doesn't look like a ship, but it seems to be a ship to me. And then we have this kind of state of numbness is what we were talking about. So while this person is feeling exhausted, there is a sense of numbness. Maybe I should put this one here. And then we put this one here. So we talk about the story of the enslaver. There's a power struggle here in terms of one is more passive, one is more upright, and one is larger as well. So there's a sense of trying to assert a kind of sense of grandness, sense of self, a forward looking. This person is not concerned at all with what's happening here. This person is a little bit reflective of what's happening, this state of being. So we have someone who is just keeping their eye forward. They're keeping their eye on the prize of where they're going. And then I feel like there's a kind of numbness here. Like it's just everything, this power dynamic, this turmoil, this journey, and the difficulty of that has become something that is just gray, transfused. There's no kind of it's all blended into one, you know, the feelings that are there. Okay, but this is me. This is filtered through so many lenses, because this is me responding to a poem by Robert Burns, and feeling that Robert Burns, as a Scottish man of a certain time, trying to empathize with the slave, and I suppose the slave in the slave's lament, the enslaved. And I suppose in some ways there are limitations to what you can do, but I do see that as some kind of protest or an understanding of what happened. We've gotten our regular time check, and so here we go. If we look at these stories, what is the resolve here? This person, the enslaved, is still working through the process. Maybe there's still some kind of entrapment. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to add a card for each one to end the story for each. The enslaver is... everything is blending all together. And so let me... try to get my my keyboard out of the way. Okay. So now I feel that our enslaved person, how would I finish this story? So I get to participate in this now. Ooh. You know, this card is like the card that always comes up for like agency, freedom, liberation, power. Alright, so okay, why not this one? Why don't I choose this one? I think this person is still attached to some other entity, so I'm not gonna use that one. Even though they're bigger, there's still a sense of power. They're still attached. Alright, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna choose cards for the enslaver. How could I finish their story? Let's put this here. All my wires on my desk. Okay. I like this one. Okay, I'm gonna tell you why. Alright, so let me gather up my cards and clear my table so we can see this story that we've constructed here. Okay, so I finished the story with the enslaved person feeling clear of all of this. Like all of this history is cleared away, and there's a new dynamic. This person is even enjoying some of the symbols that you see attached to this figure in the rest of the deck. I think we saw that here. Okay, here it is. So there's this head, or this person, this outline of a person behind her. You can see that. So now she has absorbed all of that and is enjoying a sense of ease, a sense of calm, and a sense of empowerment, a sense of protection of self. And yeah, it's like I've been through all of this and I'm now where I need to be. And then for the enslaver, it's like this was all wiped clear and incorporated into the history. But maybe there's a need to address the microscopic things that still lay there, that still swim. Okay, so that is a look at our story, a journey for each. On one hand, both having this experience from different perspectives. One person giving over completely, while one person is focused on moving forward and taking the power. So it's like a transfer of power happening here. I've given so that you can feel more powerful. We both started here together. And then in this one, I am still resistant. I'm still feeling entangled. I'm still bearing the weight of what has passed. And then in this one, we see I totally erased that. I've melded all of that. Everything is a blur. So while one is now reacting and dealing with consequences for themselves of this situation, the other is still dealing with that, but also making the story less significant, I suppose. I don't plan these stories. I'm responding to what I see in the cards. And then we have someone who was fighting, but then also now has reached a level that they've freed themselves completely of this. And in this one, we have someone who is now looking at this clear slate and saying, okay, there's still things there, even for myself, that I need to deal with. We talked about that PTSD before, and I do believe that it goes both ways. So this is our story for today. It took over the whole segment. I'm gonna be back on Monday next week and Wednesday next week. I think we'll continue this. I think we will revisit the story and we'll do the other exercises. So have a good rest of your week. All the best. If you're watching this on YouTube and you want to add any comments, please do feel free. I think I might do this on Instagram at some point as well. So, all right, take care. Let me just switch my view back. So here we are, looking at our story. Take care.